I just can't get over that sample.
One step, two steps.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I've got a brand new music video reaction / review coming at you today, and this one is for Fire Truck by NCT 127. So I like music, I like fire trucks, let's check it out. Here we go.
Getting lifted. Fire truck. 어디 bound Mr. Farmer on the floor. 불지펴봐 열기를 식혀줄게. 불만이 가득 잠궈도 화끈하게.
That snare wooden block sound.
빼는 적은 곤란. Hey, 미지근한 분위기는 no thanks. 흔들리는 내 달궈진 backseat. 태운 뒤 빈틈없이 we get lit.
Hands up if you're feeling the vibe now. One step, two steps. 오늘 밤 너와 나 모두 다.
Not really a fan of all the pitch ambiguous type of singing here, where they're not really singing notes, it's just kind of singing any note that works, I guess.
순간 그게 소리쳐.
Fire truck. Yeah, being there everywhere 부르기만 하면 돼. Look it out 그냥 불장난 같아. Blink 나만 나타나. Just blink for me 시원하게 네 화.
It's definitely a little different. They're using a lot of stylistic cues that have been used and overused, I think. But they're putting it together in kind of a strange, different way.
Hands up if you feel it.
I just can't get over that sample.
One step, two steps.
It's like the most offensive snare sound I've ever heard, and I kind of like that.
Maximum으로 turn it up. 리듬에 맞춰 흔들어.
전율 느끼는 순간 그게 소리쳐.
Fire truck. Fire truck.
Okay, I kind of get it. They've got like the little fire engine sound effects. They got the siren kind of synthesizer that's delaying and ping-ponging around.
Maximum으로 turn it up.
Got like jazz trumpet now too.
Sabancha.
Oh, the beat just got serious here.
Sabancha. Sabancha. Sabancha.
And more jazz trumpet.
Sabancha.
Of course, they've got this kind of abstract, strange concept to go along with a kind of abstract, strange song. This song is a bit of an oddity. There are parts about it, some elements that I think are so cliche and overused and just kind of, you know, musically simplistic. But at the same time, they arranged those elements in kind of an interesting way and kind of surrounded them by a few other elements that were actually kind of cool. As I've said in the past multiple times, I'm not a huge fan of this kind of minimalist, simplistic, like stripped down, very hard-hitting but simple beat type of track when it's executed in a certain way. And again, this is a lot of subjective aesthetics type of things, stylistic preferences and choices, but also objectively there's a lot less musical content, complexity and density in a lot of the elements that make up a track like this. And obviously there's a lot of other music out there that's like this. So while I don't like some of those elements about it, you know, it's a very clear attempt to kind of tackle this genre, which happens to be pretty popular like in the US and globally right now. At the same time, they did it in such a way that they kind of added something to the conversation because they arranged those kind of overused but simplistic elements in a more complex and interesting way. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that I'm not a huge fan of the overall aesthetic, you know, the simplicity, the stripped down nature and kind of repetitive nature of a song like this. However, within that construct, they did do quite a few things that I actually liked and thought were creative. So hopefully understanding where I'm coming from, let's jump back into this and I'll try to explain all of those areas where they did use something kind of creative or they used an element in a unique way. So they kind of diverged from the cliche overused thing where many other songs in this genre are essentially falling into that trap over and over again. So let's see what we can find here. Here we go.
Getting lifted.
A very simple musical synth motif here. It repeats a ton. You notice that it's being overused here from the intro to the first verse. The vocals sound pretty nice. They're very upfront and in your face, very intense and kind of compressed sounding. You notice here they kind of get rid of a tonal center of the song and they're just kind of singing on random pitches rather than singing like within a mode or key. Not really a big fan of that because it's not really rapping, but it's not really singing either. And you'll notice that same synth bass motif is still going. They haven't changed it at all.
Fire truck.
And so it's in the intro, it's in the verses, and it's in the chorus. So basically the whole song is one simple musical motif. However, changing the beat up here is something a little bit different. You notice how it kind of mellows itself out. There's not a lot of low-end content. Then using some space there, really building up the energy. And although I don't like this part, it is kind of different sounding, you know, it's not something that you hear a lot. So that I have to give them credit for that, you know, it's something that's a little more creative that you don't hear in this genre all the time over and over again. And then this part here is really cool, it really builds.
Fire truck.
And then the most offensive snare slash woodblock slash clap sound I think I've ever heard.
Fire truck.
And listen to the insane amount of reverb on it too. I like it though.
Fire truck.
Also, you notice like the little bell sounds, you know, like a fire bell or a fire alarm. The siren sounds. I do like that too. I think that was really creative to use that, you know, theme of the song Fire Truck and incorporate fire truck-like sounds throughout the whole thing. I do like the bridge too. Here's something that you hear a little bit, you know, like in club music of this type of genre, where they'll switch up the beat like this and go to like a backbeat or a shuffle or something else. But the way they executed it here, I think, was definitely kind of different, kind of unique. And then that jazz trumpet, like, why is that here? But it kind of works. So I'm not exactly sure what they're going for in this song. I'm not really a fan of the overly simplistic stripped down track with a very simple musical motif that repeats constantly throughout the entire thing and really doesn't change. And I'm not really a fan of how they utilize that talk singing where they're not really hitting any pitches, because if you listen to the parts where they're actually singing in this song, it sounds really good. It's like, wow, that's a breath of fresh air. Why didn't they do that for more of the song? But having said all that, if you're gonna do a song like this, you know, you might as well make it as unique as you possibly can. Throw some creative things, maybe throw some goofy things that may not normally or conventionally fit in there, which they did, and make it work somehow. And I think they did kind of accomplish that. And, you know, sticking to an overall aesthetic where you're kind of stripping everything away and keeping it on the more simplistic side and beat focused, you know, that presents its own set of challenges because you can't really hide things within the song because everything is just there and exposed, and there's not a lot of complexity to hide behind. And so again, you know, they executed the style that it was supposed to be and also added in some other things that you wouldn't normally think would work with this type of style. So it's definitely not really something that I would personally listen to a lot, maybe occasionally, but it's not terrible either. You know, I think this song just kind of represents an experiment. And as an experiment or a proof of concept, I mean, I guess it's a success. However, there is one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about. From the little snippets of vocals that I've heard from NCT, I think they really have a lot of great singers and some skilled rappers. So if you do a song like this, and a good portion of it that has talk singing vocals where they're not really hitting any pitch, so they're not really singing and they're not really rapping either, I do worry that the talent of the group NCT may get a little bit lost in these experiments if they continue to do them like this. So I'm all for trying new things, you know, exploring some different musical genres like I think they were doing in this track. But of course, the other side of that is hopefully not falling into a trap where this group doesn't really have a defined sound or direction, and everyone who's listening to the group is confused as to what the group can actually do because their songs are so conceptual or experimental. So that's just my take on it, something to think about. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that in the comment section as well. And thanks so much for watching this reaction/review. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you could share this video all over the place, Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, forums, all that stuff really helps me out, and I'll see you guys next time.